talking about the FV301. Now, I know I'm a little late on this review, but I decided to make a video on it just because of the last few games I've been playing. I've been coming across them. And I want to talk about how they are actually, believe it or not, there are some aspects of that are OP. As in some, I mean as in one. There's one aspect that I have so far found that is overpowered about this tank. Now, if we go to the British tech tree line and go over to the FV301, the stock gun has an average penetration of 171 millimeters. Now, believe it or not, that is actually the average penetration for a tier 8 light tank on all the other tech trees. It's top gun. That's what their top gun penetration is. So off the basis, you already have a good gun. Not to mention, when you get to the top gun, you get an extra 55 millimeters of penetration. This thing has as much penetration as my T30 or T34 has. Not to mention, it has 190 alpha, which can also roll up to over 200 damage. With a 4-second reload time, and you can see where things start getting a little bit stronger on the light tank side. If I go to the American tech tree and go down to the tier 8 T49 and go to the not derp gun, it has an average penetration of 173, which is a little bit less than the British tank, but pretty close. And well, the derp gun is 152, but that's to be expected. To the German tech tree line, the RU251. Sure, it has one gun, but it's the top gun of 180 millimeters of penetration. It's a little bit more, but not by much. Now on to the Russian tech tree line, the the T54. Its top gun has an average penetration of 175, which is a little bit less. Now we go down to the French tech tree, the AMX 1390. Go on to here, and 170. Interesting, right? How all the tier 8 light tanks have around close to 170, 175 penetration. But the British light tank has 226 millimeters of average penetration. Not to add on to the fact that it also has an APCR penetration of 258. There's basically nothing that you cannot go through with this gun. Not to mention, you have a 4-second reload. You can just shred people with this gun. And what I feel like is going to happen is Wargaming is definitely going to nerf this penetration drastically, because this penetration is ridiculous. What I feel like Wargaming should do is bring this penetration down to the stock guns penetration, and bring the stock guns penetration down to a more realistic penetration of the other light tanks. For example, let's go to the, I don't know, the Russian tech tree. The stock gun has 175. Okay, so the penetration doesn't change for the Russian one. Alright, interesting. I know the American does, I believe. It goes from 173 to 170. Okay, no, it doesn't change either. So, what I'm seeing here is it doesn't look like penetration changes, just the damage. Oh no, the AMX does change. So you could do something with the AMX, where you can nerf this penetration down, or nerf, and then nerf this one down to that penetration, and nerf that one down to lower penetration. Or you can keep this one the same, and maybe go up to 180 or 179, but not 226. That's just ridiculous. Like, that's the penetration of tier 8 heavy tanks. I mean, you need that penetration to deal with heavy tanks because of the heavy armor you find in this tier than the VK100 OP and all these other heavy tanks that are extremely heavily armored. You do not need this type of penetration in a light tank. That is what's breaking this tank, and that's why, say you're in your VK101P, you're doing what you can of wiggling, jiggling, and then this guy starts penning you like crazy, and you're like, what the heck's going on here? Then you go searching in the tech tree, and you find out he has a total of 258 millimeters penetration. So it's absurd, really. I just don't know what else to say about it other than it's an absurd amount of penetration for a tier 8 light tank. Like, I mean, if we go to the tech tree again, and if we go to... We're not going to look at the British tech tree line. We're going to look at the... there's not many light tanks in tier 10. But if we go to the Batchet, you have an average of 240, 232. Like, that's penetration on light tanks in tier 10. Tier 9. Not tier 8. Like, you do not need that type of penetration in tier 8. I'm sorry about it. Especially for a tier 8 light tank. Does not need that type of penetration. So, we're going to look at a couple battles here, and we'll talk about it a little bit more.
You're a superhero.